Before this video starts, I just want to let you guys know that I am going to be saying the full title of this thing. I know that originally I wasn't going to, but just because I know a lot of people would say it's fine, it's alright, I will say it, but I'm not going to be saying it a lot in this video just because, one, I don't need to say it multiple times, I can only just say it once, and two, it is also a mouthful, so yeah. So I just wanted to let you guys know, so yeah, enjoy the video. It doesn't surprise me that this movie already has garnered controversy the moment it was even shown to the public, trailer wise. But hopefully, after watching that said trailer, I could get a good movie or something that speaks volumes to what Black Americans face in this country. At least I hope. Hopefully.
Even though we might never see each other again, I need you to know that what we had was real.
I'm curious to see how you gonna make it out of all this.
The American Society of Magical Negroes was directed and written by Kobi Libii, starring Justin Smith, David Allen Grier, and Lee Bogan. According to IMDb's plot synopsis, a young man, Aaron, is recruited into a secret society of magical black people who dedicate their lives to a cause of utmost importance, making white people's lives easier. Like I said at the beginning, when the trailer for this film debuted, there was immediate controversy surrounding this trailer, just from the premise alone, but just how much this is having to deal with racism in America. Having learned American history and the horrible shit that has gone on within this country and still does to this day, I'm always happy to see any sort of minority, not just black, but anybody, Hispanic or Asian, or even the gay community, to have their voice be heard with regards to concerns that they have that has become a big issue in America for them. So I was interested in what this movie was going to be, what its messaging was. But after watching this film, you guys, wow, it completely misses the point of its premise. It was like if you had a basketball, you try to dunk it, but you feel like you hit it, but really in reality, the ball just kind of went a few feet and then just dropped immediately. It was nowhere near the court in any sort of way. An effort, but not close enough. But overall, this movie was just frustrating from beginning to end for me. So here are the only positives I could say about this film. The performances are fine for the most part. Justin Smith is really trying here. Okay, I really believe that this guy is trying his best, and I can see why a lot of people would be attached to this project because of its messaging. But I feel like after seeing this movie, it just seems to me that he is trying. Everybody is, but I know damn sure Justin Smith is doing his absolute best with what he is given. But I digress. He plays Aaron, a young man who faces racial issues and becomes part of the so-called society. And yeah, with what the script gives him, it is not enough. Regardless on how much he is trying, it's just not enough, but I do not blame him, and he is doing everything he can. And he's not really necessarily, for me, bad. It's just, when you watch a movie, you see somebody struggling with what they're doing, but they just keep on going with it, and you just kind of like, oh man, I kind of feel bad. And that's just what I feel when I was watching him. David Allen Grier, I will say, is actually the only good actor I think is pretty good in the film. The only problem is he's not in the movie that much, which makes it disappointing. And I am serious when I say this. He is the best part of this movie. What the problem is when he's not in enough, then you're kind of left with not a lot with regards to seeing this character. Both Smith and Allen Grier are decent together, especially involving one scene with Aaron and Roger, Allen Grier's character, regarding his past and what he did. And it was almost like the premise there alone, or at least like a part of a story that I thought could have worked or was handled so well, and yet you just look at the rest of the movie and you're like, wow, how do you miss this? Because that scene was pretty good. If you've seen the movie, you would know what I'm talking about. But there's just a scene involving Roger's past, and he discusses it with Aaron. And man, you just are sitting there like, how could you have fumbled that so badly when you had it right there? Lee Bogan is okay as Lizzie, a woman who works at a social media company that Aaron is assigned to for his white client, because the whole premise is he has to work with a social media worker at a social media company. of helping him out of his funk and all that stuff. And so, because of that, he also discovers that the girl he had just bumped into earlier in the film happens to work there, and he falls immediately for her without a doubt. She, like Smith, is doing the best with what she's given. And I feel like I am repeating this, you guys, but I am being as legit serious as I can be. Both Smith and Bogan are fine together despite that writing. Generally, I do think that they seem like they had some really good rapport with each other off screen. It's just, when you watch the movie, as much as you could feel like the actors themselves have good rapport with each other, the characters themselves, no, not even close. You just kind of feel a little bit awkward by the whole situation. And I really think the concept is intriguing. Having a secret society of black people whose job it is to make white people feel comfortable while tackling the race is, I think, a very unique and interesting concept that I think could have played out, especially today. Making a statement about racism just in America is, I think, a fascinating idea that could have worked. And again, that premise sounds great on paper and could really be awesome to have in a movie like this, because I always like when movies try to tackle any sort of subject matter or any sort of issues that have been plaguing minorities in this country, and I'm always happy to see these movies because I always want to see films try to succeed with regards to what its statement is. Fortunately, this movie's not it, but I'm just saying, movies of this nature, I want to always respect what the filmmakers intend to make. Aside from that, you guys, this has to be one of the most unfocused and indecisive films that I have seen this year. Really. I generally think that this is the most undecisive film I've seen. So here are the negatives with this film. The story is a mess. The film feels like two movies into one. And I really mean that. I feel like Kobi Libii, it's almost like he was going to a meeting to talk about the film, but he had like two movie scripts. So what happened was he ran into somebody and all the papers went flying. He had to scramble all the papers together, head to the meeting, and as he was pitching it, he had them mixed up, or he just decided to combine two ideas, a social commentary on race with rom-com with this, and just mesh them together. And if that's the case, that was not the wisest choice you could have possibly done with this film, like at all. The American society just is hardly in the film, and the romance just doesn't feel natural. It feels forced and mostly awkward throughout, and you're gonna hear me say that a lot in this video, awkward, because I truly mean that this movie is pretty awkward with what it's trying to go for. The direction feels unfocused. Director Kobi Libii has a hard time on nailing the tone and style of what the movie is trying to be. Libii also doesn't know how to balance the message and humor with each scene. I mean, he seems to really be struggling with how do you capture the humor and that messaging across so well, and that has to just do with the fact that he's just not knowing how to balance those scenarios into one scene. It just doesn't come off really well. The visuals are terrible. Anytime Aaron and the other members of the society use their powers, it looks very noticeable. And especially near the end of the film, it just becomes even more noticeable. It's pretty much, you can tell outright that they are standing behind a green screen near the end of the movie. Like, completely is apparent. Like, if you took all my shelving and all this stuff down and you see the screen that you see in the corner and all that stuff, it's pretty much, you could probably do that shot in my room and it would still look noticeable regardless. The writing is bad. Every conversation that characters have seems to be struggling with making a smart commentary on racism, and instead it just pretty much spells it out. Because usually movies can handle racism if they are very clever with it and it is well thought out and has a good idea with how conversations are handled with characters. This movie pretty much just spells it out throughout this movie. And I mean completely, like, pretty much almost shouts it out. And it is not, like, subtle with how it goes about it with its conversation. It just comes off as being more or less of screaming. Also, the dialogue just feels pretty much awkward throughout this movie, especially the scenes between Aaron and Lizzie. Those feel the most awkward of any movie I've seen this year. Almost uncomfortable a lot of the times. The character development is lacking, although Roger is an interesting character, and I think that the only interesting character, most of the characters are just types. For example, Aaron's the scared and awkward main character, which, by the way, why would you make that your kind of like your main character when you want to have a message for black people to understand and to kind of rally behind, and you want a character that you can really appreciate. But when you have a character that is just mostly awkward and scared half the time, it just feels unnatural. That why would you want that to be a character that Black people would want to rally around as to have this be your protagonist? I mean, really, why would you? And even if they did make him scared, it's still just, why would you make him even more awkward than he already is? Leslie's just the love interest. That's all she serves throughout this movie. There's no point of what she makes in terms of conversations. It's just romance gobbledygook that you've heard 1,000 times, and that's all there is to these characters. They're just stock characters. That's it. That's all they are. Now, the ending is laughable. Now, spoiler alert, if you have not seen this movie, I mean, honestly, if you still are intrigued in seeing this movie, you can, but I'm just saying, if you don't want to be spoiled, skip to this time frame, and it'll save you the trouble. But if you've seen it or you don't give a shit, here it is. The fact that the movie ends with, like, a setup for, like, another society that, like, Lizzie is a part of, because there's a joke in the film that has to deal with, like, one of the, like, objects she has in the film that they come across, and they, like, point out and laugh at, and it turns out to be, like, something that's part of her society. I mean, it just doesn't feel earned. It just feels forced by doing that, and it just feels unnecessary. You don't need to do that. I don't know why you would do that, but they did. I don't know why, but you did. The pacing and runtime is just all over the place. Pacing just feels rushed with every scene, except for the dragged out romance scenes. I mean, they are really, like, just dragging this romance subplot through the goddamn curb so much that it just halts this movie in certain spots. But with a runtime of 1 hour and 45 minutes, it should have been, I think, 2 hours. But then again, if it was, I would still have to have been sitting there for a much longer time. So maybe thank God it was that long. But at the same time, by doing that, you've also now just made a shorter film and condensed all your ideas and had to throw everything out with regards to cleverness out the window for the sake of making that shorter runtime. And lastly, the theme feels mishandled. On its own, the theme could have worked, but unfortunately that's not how it was executed. Not at all. The way the film plays out the theme is just not handled in the best way. It is just misused and misrepresented of what this premise is. I am very disappointed with how this film turned out. What could have been an interesting film turned out to be a mess through and through. It was a mess. Overall, the film fumbles the bag on its premise, and I don't understand how you could fumble the bag. I don't know how, but you did. I'm going to give the American Society of Magical Negroes a 2 out of 10. I mean, really disappointed in this film. Pretty much just in awe in how you could just easily mishandle a premise like this. But they did. Thanks. So I will be having my reviews for both Roadhouse films, the 1989 original and the 2024 remake, and then soon, hopefully, Ghostbusters and the Monarch films. I'm doing my best, you guys. And just stick with me. I'm going to get through it, and I'm hopefully going to catch up. So yeah, look forward to those reviews and other movie TV show reviews coming soon.